Hey, what's up guys? This is Technical Tim here. I'm going to break down UFC Philadelphia and give away a second free pick of the week for the Kenney and Borg fight, in a fight where I think Kenney is definitely value, and he may just win straight up. Maybe not, but I tend to think he will, and I definitely think he's value. And if you don't don't play Borg. If you're not going to play Kenney, whatever, I wouldn't play Borg here. He's not worth the play. But I just want to let you guys know that at the beginning. But I want to also say thank you so much for the people who have been subscribing to the channel. If you haven't already, I'd really appreciate it if you did. If you enjoy the content of this video, I'd also really appreciate a thumbs up as well. And thank you to all the people who've been contributing. Anyway, back to this fight. I might get scramble-minded here. But bear with me, try to follow along. I'll try to take you through this the best way I can. But I'm going to first kind of explain generally what Kenney's skill set is, because he's a late replacement, so a lot of people probably don't know him. And then I'm going to kind of explain what Borg's skill set is and kind of go through his fights and explain what the trend has been of who he's been beating and who he's been losing to. So I'm going to do that, and then maybe while I'm doing that, I'll explain how I think the matchup will go, and then after I'll kind of emphasize again how I think the matchup is going to go. So let's start off talking about Kenney. He's like a double champ in LFA. He's fought some good guys. Like, maybe they're not all that well known, but all the guys he's fought are skilled. And his skill set is he's a volume striker on the feet and very aggressive. He is a little slow, but he's big. He's big. He's about 5'7", or at least big relative to Borg. Borg's about 5'4". And he throws a lot of volume, a lot of strike variety, a lot of kicks, seems to have a lot of power for the weight class as well. And he's just busy on the feet, but he can be hit at times and isn't all that athletic, at least for flyweight, bantamweight type of fighters. But he's really busy, and he's always kind of the aggressor. And so he's a good round winner on the feet. Like, he does what you would want to see if you were a judge. He's busy, always throwing, aggressive. So that's kind of his game on the feet from just a general sense. And on the floor, he has a judo background, and I'm skeptical of judo players in MMA. I don't think they're all that good. I think the reason why Ronda Rousey had success was more so because the women's sport wasn't evolved yet, but eventually she kind of got washed out. But you don't see like judo people just out grappling. I mean, you can find some examples of it, but generally the grapplers are really good folk style wrestlers. Your Gillespies, your Cormiers, your Askrens, all those type of guys, you know who they are. And then you also have a tier of guys who are Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu based, who've learned takedowns. These are your Yayas, your Damian Mayas, your Husier Formigas, those type of guys. And I'll be talking about Husier Formiga in this video because it's important to characterize a distinction here. But yeah, so generally I don't really like the judo type of guys, but what I like about Kenney is not only does he have that judo background, he's a good folk style wrestler. He was a state champ in high school. He wrestled, I think he got a scholarship offer, I'd read, to a D2 school, University of Indianapolis, which don't hear D2 and think it's bad. Sometimes that can be better, like honestly, because guys who wrestle D2 generally don't wrestle freestyle, so they get really good at folk style wrestling, and that's all they do. And so that's kind of what Kenney is, and he's really good at writing. But Kenney, I really like his folk style grappling. He uses really good spiral rides. I tweeted out what a spiral ride was earlier today, so go look at that if you it's basically a technique to break your opponent's base and keep them on the mat. You see Gregor Gillespie do it all the time. You'll see a Cormier do it. And it's usually not mentioned by the commentary because most of them aren't wrestlers. Like, you'll hear maybe a Cruz or a Cormier mention it, but guys like Felder, Hardy, Anik, Rogan, those guys really don't know some of these techniques because they don't come from that background. I'm not talking shit on them. It's just they don't. And so he'll use techniques like that, Turks, all these little moves to keep the opponent on the floor. It's all folk style based. And he's really good. You could go watch 2 fights ago. I think he was against a guy named Roy Val in LFA. You can find it on YouTube. He rides a guy for about 25 minutes. And he has really, really good control and a lot of different ways to keep people down. And I was impressed by that fight. So that's kind of Kenney's game. Again, volume striker, seems to have pretty good power too, relative to the weight class. But he's a little slow, can be hit if you're quick and athletic, which Borg is, so that could be an issue. And then really, really good folk style wrestler with top control. And even though I haven't seen much of his defensive wrestling, I've seen some people try to take him down, and he showed little tendencies that scream to me that he's going to be really hard to take down or control. So that's his game. Ray Borg. So this is going to get a little complicated. First, I'm going to explain right now what his game is, and then I'm going to kind of go through his record and explain why he's had success in fights and why he hasn't. So Ray Borg is a very low volume striker. Doesn't throw much, throws less than 2 strikes per minute, which is really, really low, especially for the lighter weight classes. And his striking did look improved versus Hussier Formiga, but it was kind of like spot successes. He'd kind of blast in using his athleticism and maybe sting Formiga a little bit, but it wasn't like he was doing it for prolonged periods. It was kind of like he'd maybe do it for a minute or a minute and a half. And he doesn't throw enough volume to where I think he can outstrike Casey in like a 3-round kickboxing match. Because I think Casey just throws a little more. So that's kind of Borg's striking game. He's just kind of low volume, and he's athletic and can land some shots. And hopefully he doesn't drop Kenney. If you're betting Kenney and maybe Ray kind of steals around that way in a fight that he's like in a round that maybe he's losing and lands like a big shot at the end, it'd be annoying, but at plus 260, I don't give a fuck. So Borg will kind of do that, and he tends to struggle against, he struggled against Justin Scoggins, who's probably a better striker than Kenney, but Kenney throws a lot more volume than Scoggins. So, and a thing Scoggins and Kenney have in common is that they throw a lot of kicks and they're long. So I feel like Borg probably on the feet is probably going to lose rounds, to be quite honest. I don't think he's going to, unless if his striking is like dramatically improved again, which I don't know. I don't think it, he seems to be the same guy fight to fight. I think his success versus Formiga on the feet might have even just been random. I could be wrong, and maybe he's improved. But I just don't think even if he's improved, I don't think he throws enough to win convincing rounds on the feet as a minus 320 favorite, whatever he is right now. And then his grappling. So his grappling is he seems to have also wrestled in America, meaning he's a folk style wrestler, but he doesn't look all that good, judging by how easy he's been taken down in the past by opponents. But he's a good scrambler. He's definitely a good scrambler, and his scrambling is folk style wrestling bases, meaning he'll use like a switch, and I think I've even seen him do like a Peterson, which if you've wrestled, you know what that is. If you haven't, I'm not gonna. You can just look it up on YouTube what a Peterson is. But he uses the different folk style wrestling to kind of scramble out of situations and maybe get an advantageous situation on the ground and have top position and kind of ride you out. So he really relies on scrambling on the floor. His takedowns aren't all that good. They're not bad, but they're not all that great, and they're very folk style based as well. But then he relies on his scrambling, and then he can be taken down. So everything's kind of folk style based, right? And Kenney's folk style based as well. So then if you look at Borg's record, his wins and losses make sense because his wins are like Louis Smolka, a bunch of 3 guys who I didn't really know that well, and I kind of did some research on them, who don't come from a folk style wrestling background. So those 4 guys, he beat them because A, they're not that good, and B, they're not folk style wrestlers. So his wrestling and scrambling will work on them because they don't have a folk style background. His other win is Hussier Formiga. Really good win. And this is usually last couple days when I've been mentioning how I like Kenney in this fight, people are like, but I mean, how's Kenney going to beat Borg, who beat the #1 contender? And it's like, it's because this is a different style. And Hussier Formiga he's a really good grappler, but he's not a folk style guy. He's not at all. He learned a couple takedowns, like he'll do some single legs and stuff like that, but he's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu based. He's not like, he'll kind of just take you down and get a back take with a body triangle. He's not using folk style wrestling. And Borg was able to out-scramble him because Borg has folk-style wrestling that Formiga doesn't have. So he was better in those situations and was able to win the position battle, okay? So that's why he won that fight. And it looks like a really good win. The striking was impressive earlier in the round because Formiga seems to be a pretty good striker. So that was, I'll tip my cap to Borg there. But from the grappling situations, it makes sense. Even though Formiga, like, really good grappler and everything, it makes sense that he lost the position battle here, just like it makes sense why Yaya and Maya lost position battles recently against really good folk style wrestlers and couldn't take them down either. You look at Yaya Simone, I was heavy on Simone on that fight. I was really vocal about that fight. You look at Maya versus Covington, Usman, and who's the other one? Woodley. So like Formiga, Yaya, and Maya have success against guys who don't have that folk style base, and that makes sense that Formiga couldn't get it going versus Borg, who has a folk style base. So that's why I think Borg has won all these fights. And then if you look at who he's lost to, Mighty Mouse, who's awesome, and I understand, like, it's Mighty Mouse, he has more skills in folk style wrestling, Scoggins, and Dustin Ortiz. But the thing is, against Mighty Mouse is an amazing fighter, but he's really not the best wrestler. He's a good wrestler, very good wrestler, but probably similar to Kenney, honestly, from an offensive standpoint and from a positional standpoint, holding you down. And you're probably laughing at me, but like, watch Mighty Mouse versus Tim Elliott. Tim Elliott was taking down Mighty Mouse. Cejudo was taking down Mighty Mouse. I know Cejudo's amazing, but Tim Elliott's just kind of like a blue-collar type fighter. He was taking him down. So, like, just because you're Mighty Mouse, it doesn't mean there's certain skill sets that can keep you at check at times. Sorry, I'm probably getting off topic. But, so Ray Borg, he was getting taken down repeatedly by Mighty Mouse, and I don't think Mighty Mouse is like all that great of a top control guy. Like, I don't even know if he's better than Kenney at doing that specific skill, even though he's much better at Kenney in other areas. And then Ray Borg also, he couldn't get his scrambling going against Mighty Mouse, and he couldn't get it going against Scoggins. He was getting outstruck because he doesn't throw enough volume, and he couldn't use his folk style base to scramble and end up in top positions, and he was getting taken down himself because he's not that good of a wrestler, because Scoggins has a folk style wrestling base. And it makes sense why that happened, and Scoggins kept getting top position in that fight. He outstruck him, kept getting top position, kept taking him down, because Borg's little folk style scrambles Scoggins has done his whole life. And that's what I think is going to happen here versus Casey Kenney. And I think Casey Kenney's going to be able to take him down, and anytime Borg tries to really take him down, I mean, maybe he gets a takedown, but I don't think he's going to be able to hold him down or even get that many takedowns. And he's probably going to get taken down himself if Kenney goes that route. And I prefer Kenney just a straight up offensive wrestle, kind of like Scoggins started doing late, because I think he'll outposition Borg on the floor, because I think he's the better folk style wrestler here. So yeah, like I think this is a great value play, and I honestly might favor Kenney straight up. I think Kenney has the path of least resistance. It's funny because people wouldn't agree, or it's counterintuitive, is if he grapples. I'd rather him grapple here. I do think he could just win a kickboxing match by being busier as well, but I think he might just out-grapple Borg. Yeah, like I'm pretty confident in this, but I think the reasonable arguments maybe against Kenney are that there could be there's levels to this type of thing, but just being Borg is UFC caliber and things like that, but I don't think so. This looks like a wrestling match to me, and I think Kenney's a better wrestler here. I think it's pretty clear on tape, personally. So, yeah, like I really think Casey Kenney might win this fight straight up even. So I'm definitely going to be playing him. I also think a good play, just in case if like somehow if Borg wins just like a kind of a close back and forth fight, and maybe Kenney we find out that a lot of his tactics kind of work on lower level competition, but not against Borg, even though I don't think that will be the case, but it's definitely in the cards. I think the point handicap play is about even money right now for Kenney, and I think with his volume and his wrestling base, he's going to be really hard. It's going to be hard for Borg to get offense going on him. I think he'll definitely take a round here. So, and that's even money. So maybe mix up a little play on his handicap or his money line, or just throw one unit maybe on Kenney's money line. So it's 1 unit and you get almost 3 back, and it's a low risk. It won't ruin your night if the dog doesn't get hit here. But yeah, I think Kenney is the better wrestler here. I really do. And I hope he goes that route. I think it'll be an easier path to him, and I hope he figures it out in the fight. I hope he kind of, because Borg will engage a grappling situation, and I hope he kind of realizes it. Sometimes whenever you're in the room with someone, you kind of feel feel their maneuvers and their leverage, and you kind of all of a sudden realize you have the upper hand on them. You can just tell with just one little sequence, and I hope he realizes it and just starts taking him down. And yeah, so that's my breakdown. So, sorry, this was not the most polished video. I hope you got some valuable insight. And at the very least, I think you just shouldn't play Borg in a parlay or something. I do not think it's worth the risk. And sometimes people get scared to play underdogs, but it's low risk. It's only a unit. Will not ruin your night at all. There's plenty of other fights on the card, but I think the point handicap's a good play too. And I think Kenney's going to be just getting this done anyway. So I'll be playing him. And yeah, I hope this is valuable video for you. If you please like it, like I said earlier, and that's all I have. Comment below, message me on Twitter. Thank you.